Good morning, Rabbi Isai. L'nishmas imi meros Yerusbas Mordechai. Rabbi Isai, we're holding by the Mishnah on Daf Kuf Zayin on Beis. The good news is we have a very short daf today. Says the Mishnah, Tzoyer Adam Basar Gvino b'mitpachas achas. You're allowed to take meat and cheese, meat and dairy, and put them into one bag. We'll call it one plastic bag. Make sure they don't touch each other. Because if they touch each other, then some of the fats of one will go into the other, you'll cook it won't be a good thing. A lot of these halachas we're familiar with, and this is the source right over here. So, what do? This kid wants to eat pizza, and I want to eat meat. What do? So these are the halachas right over here. So first says the Mishnah, if you have two people that don't know each other, as the Gemara is going to explain, two guests sitting on a hotel table, they don't know each other. Each one could eat their own, because since they don't know each other, one is not going to go over and then take a piece of pizza from the other guy without, it's not a normal thing. So he'll eat his pizza, he'll eat his meat, and there's no problem. Says the Gemara, so what if they're in the same bag and they touch each other? Two cold items. It's not bishul. Nothing happened here. You're right. You don't have to peel off the outer layer of either one. You certainly need to wash it off. If the cheese gets a little piece of meat on it, you don't have to wash it off. What happens if you eat that cheese later on? What happens if the cheese goes into the meat and you cook the meat and there's a little bit of cheese on it? So you certainly have to wash it off. And now the problem is that you might forget to wash it. So don't put two items of basar b'chol touching each other. They can be in the same bag, but make sure they don't touch. Now this is a very nice halacha. Doesn't say it here, but it's in halacha. What if the two objects are like hard cheese, a block of hard cheese and a block of hard meat touching each other? Salami. Well, salami has, you should see the salami. We hate, on the counter you'll see like, something like salami. Yeah, a hot dog. A hot dog. Yeah, literally a hard piece touch. So the halachas, you don't have to wash it off. It's like nothing. Beef jerky, nothing. Nothing went from the beef jerky onto the cheese, and nothing from the cheese onto the thing. So use common sense. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel loy shnei achsanoy moichlem al shulchan echad. Omer Rav Chana bar Ami Omer Shmuel lo isha nuel shem makirim zeh. This halacha that two people eat on the same table because they don't know each other. Avo makirim zeh, family members on the same table. Also, you're not allowed to have the two items on the same table. Wait a minute before we jump into any conclusions. Tayin namahachi. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel loy shnei achsanoy shenisarchu lepundek echad. Two guests come to the same hotel. What is it telling us here? It's telling us that they don't know each other because this guy came from the north and the other guy came from the south. They come with their own food. He comes with his meat and he came with his cheese. Because they don't know each other. It's only also when they touch each other, they're together and touch each other. It says Gemara, if they touch each other, then it's also even in somebody's bag, walking down the street, nothing to do with the table at a hotel. So here comes the halacha of heker. We all know the idea of heker. If this guy's eating cheese and he's eating meat on the same table, what do? So you put something out there. Some people put a placemat. Each one should ask their own rav. You put a loaf of bread that you're not going to touch. You put some sort of distinction, a heker, that you know that he's eating fleishiks, he's eating milchiks, he's eating dairy, and he's eating meat, and therefore they won't come. And it comes from this word right over here, when it's similar to touching each other, meaning there's no heker. If you have a heker, then it's okay. This is Noirvayim. I know a few cases like this. It's a ma'aseh b'chol yom, especially a lot of times it happens after your Yerusha. You have two brothers that are makpid zeh. They don't talk to each other. Lo yoleinu, they don't talk to each other. Shnei achim u'makpidim zeh mahu. Two brothers will not eat from each other's plate. Why? I don't know why. Omar lei. So now there's no problem. You know that they're not going to eat from each other. So can they eat on the same table? Omar lei. Yoimru kol asriki nasurun usriki baitus mutarim. They used to have a minhag to make designs on the matzah. You know, like on the sour bread today, they make these flowers and trees. So they make a design on the bread. So they said it's also to do. Why? Because people spend a lot of time making designs, and then it'll become chametz. But Baitos had a great idea. They had like a form, like a stamp, like a thing. They go boop, and in 2 seconds they had a design. So are you allowed to make a design? Can Baitos make the design? So it says people, of course not. Why? Loy plug. People say what? Their designs are mutter. Nobody's going to understand why, and everybody's going to come making designs. Why can't you wash clothing in Chol Hamoed? So a lot of people think it's avoida. The reason is because Chachamim wanted you to have nice clothing before Yontif. Says Gemara, so now this guy only has one cloak, only one thing. He's allowed to wash it on Chol Hamoed. What's his choice? Yoimro, but the problem is the Yoimro kol asriki nasurun usriki baitus mutarim. You're not allowed to make designs on a matzah, but if you have a stamp, you're allowed to. Why do you give a head to this guy? Says the Gemara, Hasam Ha'amar Mar Baravashi Ezoiroi Mochiach Halav. When you have like a robe, a thing, so you take the gartel off and you wash the actual clothing without the gartel. Well, if you only have one, you put the whole thing in the laundry with the belt. So people see, oh, Nebuch, he's a guy that only has one. They don't. Nobody's going to think anything of it. All right, Zok Tehilagi Mishnah. Tipas cholav shenofla ala chaticha. You have a drop of milk. Shenofla ala chaticha. That fell on top of a piece of meat. Imagine a chunk. Rashi says there's a piece of meat popping out. A piece of meat popping out of the chunk, half out, and a drop of milk hits it. So now, if the flavor of the milk goes into the meat and you can actually taste geschmack, there's a reason why, these burgers, whatever, have milk in them, because it gives a flavor. If you could taste the flavor, the milk in that piece of meat, it's asur. Tipas chalav shenafla al chaticha. So he said, if a drop of milk falls onto a piece of meat, if it gives it flavor, it's asur. Listen to this halacha. Nir sagdeira. If he mixed in the whole thing, you went like this, you gave it a nice mix. When? It fell in, and then you give it a mix. If it gives flavor to the rest of the pot, it's asur. Meaning that if it doesn't give a flavor to the rest of the pot, now the milk has to contend with the whole pot, and the pot is misgaber on it. There's a roiv. There's 60 times the milk. It's mutter. What does it mean that gives flavor? We said already. We learned the sugya. A lot of that we're going to learn today. We learned already. Giving flavor means it's less than 60. That's how we give the shear afterwards. You're supposed to taste it. If you have a guy that can taste it, let him taste it. But if he can't, you don't have a guy. So it's 60. If you give it a nice mish, you hear what's going on here? Think about it. If there's a piece of meat, it fell into the meat, and you wait, that's it, it's done. The meat becomes asur. But if you take a spoon, somebody asked, I don't even know the answer really. You go like this, you give it a nice stir. So now the milk is not in this piece of meat. Now the milk is in the entire pot. The entire pot could be mvatalit. If it doesn't have 60, then it'll make the whole pot asur. Here's something like this. Here, a boy say.
We didn't do it. We stayed on it.
No, you mixed it in real good. Okay. Now, if you didn't do it, this is if you didn't. You waited. No, we're going to see what Rav says. Rav says not like you. If the whole pot has more than 60, it's mevatalit. If you give it a mix. If you don't give it a mix, then that piece itself becomes asur. What happens with that piece that becomes asur? Does it make the other pieces asur? That we're going to see. The Rav says yes. This is like a piece of nevela. First it becomes asur, becomes a piece of nevela. Now the piece of nevela is cooking in the rest of the pot. So now the 60 is the whole. You have to go 60 against this piece against the piece. Before it was against the little drop of milk. Now your milk just became the size of the meat, and now it's much harder to get rid of it. Okay, says the Gemara. Omar Abaya, Tamay v'loy mamashoy, ba'alma deiraisa. Sounds complicated, but it's not. Tamay means the flavor. Usually, you're talking about a piece of treif in a pot of non-treif. You have a piece of nevela that falls in, so you could look at it. Here's a piece of nevela. You have a piece of chazer. Here's chazer, and here's the rest. So now, it makes the rest also. But over here, you don't have anything that's physical. You have milk that disappeared into the meat. So it's just a flavor right now. The fact that the flavor makes everything aser seems like a doiraisa. Why? Because if it's only the Rabbanan, why shouldn't it be doiraisa? In other words, why don't you learn this idea that giving off flavor to anything else is aser, and you learn it out from basar b'chalav? Why? You're going to tell me the reason why you don't learn it out. There's a little bit like you have to add little pieces here, but it's not bad. Why don't you learn from basar b'chalav the chidushu? So let's pause for a second. What's the chiddush? What's the big chiddush? This new idea called basar b'chalav. What's so special about basar b'chalav? Oh, because each one by itself is mutter. You take two mutter things. Where else do you have something similar? Two things that are mutter become aser? Kilayim. Kilayim, taking two seeds. What else? What did you say? Shatnez. Here you take basar is 100% mutter to eat basar. You take chalav mutter. You put them together, it's aser. What's the second chiddush that we don't find anywhere else in the Torah? You're allowed to cook as much as you want. You're allowed to cook a piece of chazer. There's no isser to cook chazer. There's just to eat chazer. You take a piece of chazer, put it in a pot with water, put some things, and cook it for 2 hours. You over anything? No. Basar challah, it's awesome for you to cook it. You're not allowed to take the basar and the challah, put it together in a pot and cook it. So that's a chiddush. So I'll tell you the reason why I'm not learning from basar challah this idea that the flavor ruins everything is because basar challah is special. But wait a minute. But if it is a chiddush, avagav deleke nois and tam nami. If it's such a chiddush, then why is basar b'chalav only aser when it gives flavor? No, it's a chiddush. So even if it doesn't give flavor, elamai, there's no chiddush. There's no chiddush in basar b'chalav. No chiddush in basar b'chalav. So I can learn it to the rest of the Torah, meaning it's the doiraisa. Basar b'chalav is doiraisa because I'm going to learn from basar b'chalav this idea that the flavor ruins other foods. And this is the end of this sugya. Don't bring me a raya that it's not a chiddush. Why? Because you need to taste it. And if it was a real chiddush, then you wouldn't have to taste it. Even stam chalav without tasting. No, the Torah says mafurish loisavashel gedi. It has to be a bishul. What does bishul mean? Bishul means that why do I cook something? To give it flavor. So the Torah is telling you that this flavor. It could be it's a chiddush, says Rava. It is a chiddush. If it's a chiddush, I can't learn anything from it. Why does it have to give flavor? Because the Torah says it has to give flavor. It's a vashel. Okay, end of that. Now we're going back to the point that we said before. Says Rav. Omar Rav. Kivin shenosan tam b'chaticha. What happened? A drop of milk fell into the piece of meat that was sticking out. According to Rashi, we're making the sugya very simple. No machlokes rishonim, just simple shad like Rashi. Kivin shenosan tam, says Rav. Once it has flavor, what happens to the piece of meat? It turns. It goes from green to red. It goes from kosher to treif. Chaticha atzmo nasis nevela. Then the piece itself became a shtik nevela. Now this piece of nevela is cooking in a pot. It ruins everything else. Mipnei shehein mina. As we're going to see in a second, we know the famous Rabbi Yehuda that says min b'minoi loy batel. If it's the same type of food, you can never be mevatel it with 60. So now you're cooking a piece of meat in a whole pot of pieces of meat. So it happens like this. Take a look. You take a real piece of beef from McDonald's, treif, it's in a vela, and you put in kosher pieces of meat. The treif goes into those pieces. Now you can remove the original piece. It doesn't matter. Everything is treif. And it's just a bunch in the vela just keeps on going. Goes forever. Why? Because each piece can never become batel, even in 60. Because Rabbi Yehuda holds, min b'mino loy batel. Okay. So the original piece is a piece of nevela. Why is it nevela? It's a piece of basar b'chalav. Ma'am is also to eat a basar b'chalav. So now it continues giving off the issur to the rest of the pieces. He must be holding like Rabbi Yehuda. He must go like Rabbi Yehuda that says that in the same item, if it's all meat is not batal. Lema pliga the Rava. So the he's arguing on Rava. The Amar Rava, this is also something we learned just recently, maybe a week ago. Because Rabbi Yehuda kolshu minu minoi v'davar acher. If you have the same item, meat, that fell into a pot of meat, but you have another thing in the pot. What do you have? You have potatoes and beans. It's a chont. What do you do halachically? Salekis minoi kemisha einoi. You get rid of the original, all the meat. Pretend there's no meat. So what do you have left? You have the piece of treif and potatoes. And then it becomes batal b'roiv. It goes like this, Rabbi side. Here you have a pot of red is meat and green is potatoes. And this guy, I painted this Matzah Shabbos, Mama's beauty, I love it. Red, this is basar b'chalav right over here. So when I drop it into the pot, what happens? If I drop it into the pot and all these reds become nevela like this, these potatoes cannot be mevatel this. This is a lot. But if halachically, when I drop it into the pot, I go like this, I get rid of all these. That's what Rava says. You get rid of it, any min, it's the same item, get rid of it, halachically. So now what do you have? You have one piece of meat and 60 lollies over here, 60 potatoes. The mevatel, this guy becomes batal. It's only because I'm getting rid of all the meat. If I didn't get rid of the meat, then this would not become batal. It would gang up with all the meats, and you don't have enough potatoes to mevatel all the meat. But since it's a small piece of meat, and there's a lot of potatoes and beans in this chont, it becomes batal. That's if you hold like Rabbi Yehuda. Let's see what he did. I didn't see this yesterday. This wasn't ready yet. You pretend the meat is not there, and now you have just a bunch of chont, and the chont is mevatel the piece of meat. Huh? You pretend. No, you just pretend. Halachically, it's not there. Halachically, it's not there. It's not powerful to help you out. It's as if it's not there. You don't take it out. There. Oh, Malay. So he says, okay, you're right. It's a good title what you're saying. But there's two types. That's if it happened like this. In a sauce, in a gravy that's very thin. Regular gravy. Then you're right. Then all that gravy and all the beans and everything will overcome the piece of meat and make it kosher. You're right. It's a special situation. The nafal b'roitev ava. It's like a piecey kind of. What's the better gravy? There's a better word than gravy. Soup. I don't know what it is. Okay, you understand the idea. If it's thick and it's made of small pieces, there's
no mixture.
I don't know. So then it becomes that all that soft stuff is actually hard. Hard is actually considered meat, and the meat will be mitzaref with the other meat. You cannot use it as a mevatel b'roiv. You can't use that roitev, that sauce, that gravy, to go against the meat because it's actually meat. It's min b'minoi. Now we're going to learn about a concept that nobody ever heard of, not no one, a lot of us didn't hear, especially for a very long time. There's a concept called, if you squeeze it, it's mutter. What does squeeze mean? If you're able to extract the milk from the piece of meat. Milk fell into the meat, now I could extract it. How? By squeezing it. How do you squeeze it? You put it in a pot, you boil it, and it comes out. So says Gemara, why does Rav hold that the piece of meat becomes a shtik nevela? If it's possible for you to take out the milk, then you can't label this piece of meat as a nevela. Nevela means something that you can't ever correct. If you have the possibility of correcting it, then it's not a nevela. It has a temporary isser on it called basar b'chalav. But I'm able to do something. I put it in a pot. I do something. I give it a good skvetch, and out comes the milk, and it's mutter now. So why do you call it an avela? To the point where it ruins the whole pot. Ela kasavar, you must say efshal sachtay aser. So it's a new concept. So I'm throwing it up here. Efshal sachtay mutter aser. He obviously holds it's aser. In other words, that piece of meat becomes aser forever, and that's why I could call it a piece of nevela. The itmar, in fact, we have a machlokes tanoim, amarayim, Rav, v'Reb Chanina, v'Reb Yochanan, Amri, efshal sachtay aser. Shmuel, v'Reb Shimon, v'Rebbe, v'Rish Lakish, the Amri, efshal sachtay mutter. Finished. And Rav is of the opinion, before it says over here, he holds efshal sachtay aser. It remains aser. Zakti Gemara. V'Sava Rav efshal sachtay aser. Does Rav say? Does Rav really hold that if you're able to squeeze out the milk somehow, it remains aser? V'Yitmar kizayis basas shenof al toich shel chalav. You have a whole piece of meat that fell in to a pot of milk. Amarav, basar aser, the meat is aser. Why? Because it contains milk in it. The chalav mutter, the rest of the milk in the giant pot is mutter. Why? Because there's not enough flavor of the meat that went into the milk. Wait a minute, doesn't make sense. The milk should be aser, asks the Gemara. And the Gemara at the end comes out that the milk is aser. But what's the Gemara's question? Chalav amay mutter. How in the world could the milk in the pot? Yes, there's a tremendous amount of milk. There's 22 gallons of milk in the pot, and a tiny piece of meat this size fell into the pot. Now the meat obviously is treif, has milk in it. But how could this small piece of meat, says Rav, make the whole 22-gallon pot aser? Ask the Gemara, why not? Chalav nevelahu. The little bit of milk that went into this piece of meat is part of the meat. So it became basar b'chalav, it's aser. Then, eventually, it pops out of the meat. And it goes into the giant pot of 22 gallons, a little drop of milk. But guess what? Now in the whole pot, you have a tiny piece of milk that's treif, that's a nevela, that's a basar b'chalav piece of milk, drop of milk. And that drop of milk goes into the whole pot. The whole pot should be aser. If you're telling me that the piece of meat is a nevela, you can't make it mutter. If you tell me you could squeeze the meat out and one day it'll become mutter, okay. But now you're telling me that it's a piece of basar b'chalav. So the milk that's in it is completely aser and it goes into the pot and becomes aser. So the Gemara, you're right, he holds, no, we're not taking it back. He holds that the piece of meat is aser forever. This is gonna mamish, but it's only havamina. So chill out. Just have it. The isser is on the gedi, on the meat alone. Gedi asr tayr v'loy chalav. Rav says there's no isser on the meat, on the milk. Milk that has a little flesh in it is not a problem. The problem is the gedi, the meat. That's just havamina. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. Rav gedi asr tayr v'loy chalav. Does he really say such a thing? Wait, my chatzi zayis here. That's the question I started off this year. Chatzi zayis baz v'chatzi zayis chalav. You have a half a shear of each. Shebishlan zem zeh, that you cooked it together. Omarav loika al. If you eat it, you ate a whole kazayis. Yes, half of it is milk. Half of it is meat. You get malchus for that. Ve'enoi loika al bishuloi, but you do not get malchus on cooking it. Does this make sense to anybody?
Yes.
A half a kazayis of meat and a half a kazayis of milk. If you eat it, you get malchus, but you do not get malchus for cooking it. Why not, Avi?
You learned that you could swallow two chatichos at the same time and be that problem.
Okay, but first of all, you don't have a shear of each. That's the problem. But okay, so why? So you mitzaref. So how come you're not over on cooking? You cooked it. How come it's not mitzaref for cooking?
Different rule for cooking than for swallowing.
No, because you weren't mavashal kazayis.
So you weren't eating. So you didn't need a kazayis.
Once they came together, now it became a chatichanas nevela of a kazayis.
The Torah says you have to have milk. How much milk? There's a shear for milk. You can't just give a 1/millionth of a drop. That's for sure not. You're right? So 2 drops is okay? No. 5 drops is okay? No. That's because kazayis of milk. And the Torah says basar. Basar means a kazayis. Each food has to be kazayis. The Gemara sticks with what I'm telling you. If this is just on the meat but not on the milk, so how could you be over on eating a half a kazayis of milk when the milk is not even aser? Chatzi shir, all you ate right now is a half a kazayis of meat, and we don't even care about the milk, so the milk is not mitzdaref. When you have a pot and a piece of this tiny piece of meat fell into the pot, the meat is aser, but guess what? The entire pot is also aser. The whole milk is aser. But there's a special case that it's not aser. What? If the whole milk, when you fell in, was boiling hot, then it doesn't allow for the meat to spit out the milk in it. So milk never went into the rest of the milk. The milk of this is a piece of meat, and it has milk inside of it, and it fell into the pot. It absorbed milk, but it cannot spit out milk. It fell into the pot as a whole piece of meat without milk. It absorbs. When you're cooking, it absorbs. It's not able, it's too hot for it to be piloted, to expel it. Oh, so ask the Gemara, so if but isn't it going to cool down eventually? I've never seen a pot that's on the fire for 400 years straight. Eventually, you want to cook it for a day, 2 days, but afterwards you're going to shut it off, and then it's going to come out. So the Gemara, you're right. He popped a piece of meat out of it before, as it was still boiling, and he never gave it a chance to spit it back into the pot. Gufa, we're just going to do these few lines, and we're done. Gufa, chatzi zayis basar, chatzi zayis chol shebishlan zem zeh. If you cook a half a shear of meat and a half a shear of chol together, Omarav loikal chilasa. If you eat it, you get malchus. Ve'ener loikal bishulon. You don't get malchus on cooking it. Ask the Gemara manavshach. Imit starfin. If you could combine the two halves, abishul nami lilkit, then you should get malchus for cooking it. Eloi mitzdarfin. If they don't combine achila nami loilkit, you should get malchus for eating it. Says the Gemara loy mitzdarfin. No, there's no havamina that two chatzi zaysim should be mitzdarf.
For cooking.
For anything, for eating. If it came from a large pot. In other words, there was a kazayis of meat, and there was a kazayis of milk, and then you ate a half a kazayis of each together. It cooked as a kazayis of each. The cooking was great. There was a kazayis of milk, a kazayis of meat, and it cooked together. That's mamash asa d'oraisa. How much do you have to eat? A half a zayis of each, because then you have a shear of a kazayis of basar b'chalal. That's what Ari was saying. But it started off on the right foot. It started off, each one was a kazayis. Levi Omar, af loikal bishuloi. Levi says, no, you're chayiv also for the bishul. V'chein tani Levi masnisa, what? Half and half, half and half. V'chein tani Levi masnisa k'shem shaloikal, echilas loikach loikal bishuloi. He doesn't make a distinction. So you don't have the question. Mimanav shach, is it mitzdarf? It is mitzdarf. A half a shear is mitzdarf. You guys might have been saying like Levi. Now what? A half a kazayis and a half a kazayis of basar, a half a kazayis of milk put together. You're over on bishul. You're over on achila. There's no difference because once you make a distinction between bishul and achila, that doesn't make sense. Mimanav shach. Either it's mitzdarf, it's not mitzdarf. He's saying it's mitzdarf in all cases. Now, a final halacha for today. How much cooking do you need? The Torah says, how much? 1 minute, 6 minutes, 42 minutes. What's bishul? Bishul is, says the Gemara, when goyim, because a Jew can't eat it, acher means a goy. When a goy could eat it, in other words, it's a real cooking. Is it more? Let's say it's more. It's a good cooking. In other words, whatever it takes to cook something, 20 minutes on the fire, then you're over on bishul. Rabbi Sai, have a wonderful day.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDY.com.